What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Steve, doing well. Got a exciting week of football here, starting with a pretty exciting Thursday night game coming up.
Yeah, it'll be another good week. I am fresh off a trade.
Yeah, big trade. I know you were throwing some offers around.
Yeah,
finally got one to hit.
Yeah. My Chase Edmonds and Garrett Wilson for AJ Dillon, who popped up on the injury report this week. Great timing. But a good slam. He's got the Patriots this week, which could be tough, but then Giants, Jets, Washington, Buffalo is tough, but Detroit, Dallas, Tennessee. I mean, he's got a lot of good weeks in him, and I could use a running back for the zero RB kind of team. So you plug right into the starting lineup. I cannot trust Darrell Henderson anymore. Seems like Akers is getting his legs out from under him.
Yeah, I noticed that as I was going through the one league that I kind of went similar to your work league with a zero or hero RB. He's like one of 5 running backs that I have from like 2 to 6 on my team. And yeah, he was like the shoe-in second guy, and now he's kind of fallen by the wayside as he's not getting the touches, or at least as many as we would saw earlier in the year.
Yeah, it is. It's a shame. And then, Garrett Wilson, young upside, he could be a league winner, but eventually I'll be sporting Jefferson, Diggs, Sutton, and Hopkins. And in the meantime, I got Dortch in there, who's been, great. So I can afford to lose him.
The elusive wide receiver handcuff there.
Yeah, I know. Pretty rare. I'm also looking at my team, and I have all negative matchups, which is not good.
You're 2-1, right? Or
1-2
now?
Should be 2-1 because I had the third highest points scored in the first week and lost to the number 1. So
yeah,
not a great year for luck, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, you ready to jump into some start sit stuff?
Yeah, let's take a look. We got some interesting quarterback ones here to start. First one, Tua Tagovailoa at Cincinnati, Kyler Murray at Carolina.
Yeah, given the injury stuff that happened last week, I'm not sure if I'm, I haven't heard anything about him being out or anything. Just kind of concerned. So I think I'd probably go with Kyler, despite Arizona not looking all that great. But that's just me just kind of being worried, and, I wouldn't want something to happen. I know Tua was complaining about his back hurting, and they focus on the head. I hate for him to take a hit. It really be a back thing. You got 2 points and the guy's out of the game or something. So I'd probably shy away from that and go with Kyler. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with Kyler as well, especially being the Thursday game, coming off of the injury, short week. There's a chance he gets hurt early on and you started your quarterback there on Thursday and you only get a few plays, quarter, even a half. That's going to be pretty big of a setback, both on the road. I think since he's a better defense and since he needs that win, so I think they're going to come out firing. So I definitely think that's going to be a tougher game. There's just a lot more volatility with Tua versus Kyler against Carolina. They're not playing the best football right now, but Carolina I feel like is a good matchup for anybody that needs a win and needs to get on track. Carolina's been pretty up and down despite having some pretty good weapons on offense, and I think they had a pretty solid defense last year, but they just haven't been able to really get it all together here. So I think Kyler makes more sense.
Yeah, perfect. Next up here we got Jared Goff versus Seahawks, or Derek Carr versus the Broncos.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think I lean Carr. I think that could be a higher scoring matchup. The defense there for Las Vegas has not been good, so we're banking on hopefully the Broncos getting on track and scoring some points there. The Broncos defense has been solid, but a home game there in Vegas for Derek Carr. So I think that makes more sense to me than Goff with what could be some limited weapons. Amon Ra, limited practice. We have DeAndre Swift not practicing. Definitely has some other guys he can utilize, but those are definitely the two key cogs. And if you're missing one or both of those, that's definitely going to limit Goff. And Seattle's been a stingy defense. One I don't think many people thought was going to be very good, but they've definitely been, at the very least, a thorn in the side of some fantasy options that we've seen here with Russell Wilson early on, a few other offenses that they've played. So, yeah, I'll go Derek Carr. What about you?
I think I'm leaning Goff. I don't know why though. Like we were just talking about him and how they've been good and he's had one good week, but his other weeks have been kind of average, like below average, really, like below the 20-point mark, which is not what you want for a quarterback. Ricard's been above that 20 mark in 2 of his 3 games, which is important. I don't know, like something I can look at that Raiders Broncos game and something about that screams like 9-6 boring nothing game. And maybe it's just because it's divisional, the Broncos are struggling, the Raiders aren't as good as people wanted, and maybe all that's just combining into that stupid kind of feeling. Meanwhile, the Lions are kind of the opposite. Even though they're 1-2, they've looked good and been, could be 3-0 really. So I think I'll go with Goff. I don't know if the logic backs that, but that's what I'm gonna go with.
Nah, that's fair. Our next matchup here, we've got last quarterback Stafford at San Francisco, Cousins at New Orleans.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna lean Stafford here. Both not hitting on expectations. Stafford probably with the tougher matchup, with that San Francisco defense being really good, but Lattimore goes in there and shuts down Justin Jefferson, and Cousins just doesn't seem to get it done. So I'll go with Stafford here. I don't mind either of them, but I'd go Stafford. What about you?
Yeah, I lean the other way. Luckily, it's not a primetime game for Cousins, so you can hope that you get the good Kirk Cousins. But I think that San Francisco is going to want to run the ball, and I could see LA also focusing on running the ball. So I think, maybe it's more of a 50-50 split, but I see that being a more run-heavy game than the Minnesota and New Orleans game. I think that could be a little bit more passing. We'll see. I know Jameis was limited as well, so that could change if Andy Dalton's starting, but he's no slouch as well. I mean, he can definitely manage the offense, play well enough. And yeah, Lattimore's definitely a concern for Justin Jefferson, but KJ Osborne had a good week last week. Thielen's still there, especially I think if Devin Cook is out. We see Madison, we see some of the other running backs there. They could rely a little bit more on the passing game and Kirk. So I'll lean Kirk Cousins here, but I think that one's close.
Okay, moving over to the running backs here. We got 2 of them here, Will. First on PPR. Hunt at Atlanta, not Atlantic, as I so kindly put in here, or Ramondre Stevenson at Green Bay.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I lean Hunt here. I think for me, he's just a focal point of the offense. He's, regardless of how good Nick Chubb does, Hunt is going to be involved. Whereas I think a lot of times it's more of a hot hand in New England. Mac Jones scares me a little bit. That I think that could be more. Maybe both teams try to establish the run, but I think Green Bay has at home solid defense, backup quarterback. I think they're going to want to try to lean on the run, but I could see Green Bay getting up early. And we always like to talk about garbage points, but I feel like a lot of the numbers point to the team ahead usually being the better overall fantasy options than the team behind. Maybe there'll be 1 or 2 players that benefit from it, but I think you probably have more upside in PPR with Hunt than Stevenson, and just overall, I think Hunt's going to be more utilized.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I have anything more to add. I trust him more. But yeah, I mean, for all your points, I'm going with Hunt too. Nothing more to add there.
Yeah. Last running back here, half PPR, Breece Hall in Pittsburgh or J.K. Dobbins at home versus the Bills.
Yeah, an interesting one. I am not ready to trust Dobbins yet. Came back last week, so that's promising. didn't get a lot of work, so that's not promising. He was limited in practice, which I guess is to be expected. If you're limiting in the game, you're probably still limiting it in practice too. And then he's got a really tough matchup against the Bills. So there's not a lot of reason for me to want to start him yet. I think Hall's probably got a better floor and better upside. So I will happily stick with Hall there. You?
Yeah, I think, maybe you could say like the moonshot upside is Dobbins is back. He's the guy and gets all the work. I think there's a pretty low percentage chance that's the case. But you can maybe make that argument versus Brees Hall being, clearly healthy, utilized in the offense. I think he's averaging, 7 carries a game, and I think he's had 6 catches, almost double-digit targets, and 2 or 3. So he's definitely getting the work. He only got in the end zone once, but you imagine that changes. But in half PPR, he had 12 points despite not scoring. So, getting up above 90 yards, 19 opportunities with the targets there, 14 touches is exactly what you want to see for him. And I think it's, only going to get better as we move along in the year.
Yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Moving over to wide receivers here, Will. PPR. Juju at Tampa Bay or Garrett Wilson at Pittsburgh?
Man, tough to trust really any of those Kansas City offensive receivers. I don't know that I want to take a shot on him, but Wilson, I think coming off the injury, as far as we know, he's healthy, right?
Yeah.
He came out, the game before, but 6 for 10, it looks like, 60 yards here in the last game, lost to the Bengals. He did exit briefly, but it looks like he did come back in. But it was a shot to the ribs, so monitor that throughout the week. But I just like the upside there of the first round pick that is being utilized early in his career here. So far, 8 targets, 14 targets, 10 targets. So you love to see him being utilized early and often, getting him the ball, and he's going over 100 yards already, 2 touchdowns that one big game. But even though, coming down to earth game, he still had 6 catches for 60 yards and 10 targets. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here. Someone I think you and I are both happy to see producing, given that he was one of our rookie picks in our dynasty league.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I'm happy to start him this week, though. And it all comes down to Zach Wilson. Like if it looks like he's lined up to start and be okay. In which case, where do the targets go? Are they the same quality or the same quantity that we saw with Flacco? Like, I don't know. But like you said, on the other side, Juju's a dart throw. Like, I don't know what's going to happen there. Like, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I think I'm going to go Juju because I'll trust Patrick Mahomes. And like, if I'm going to take a dart throw, I'd rather, take that chance with Mahomes than, hope something continues with Zach Wilson taking the reins. It definitely could see it going the other way, like very easily. But I don't trust Zach Wilson. I need to see it for a week before I believe in it.
Yeah, can't argue with that. I actually grabbed Zach Wilson in a few places that I didn't really have a steady QB. Not planning to play him this week, but I'd rather have him rostered and stashed on the bench, see what you have out of him, and after that, then have to spend some waiver fab on him. So definitely don't mind scooping him up somewhere and just kind of taking a look and obviously hang on to all these Jets pieces because you never know what's gonna happen here. Could look good, could look bad, but you want to be prepared. If it is an upside, not have to spend all that fab.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one here, Will, half point PPR, Corey Davis at Pittsburgh, or Allen Robinson at San Francisco.
Yeah, I think this one is pretty easily Allen Robinson. I think both of them have some volatility when it comes to targets. Just in the offense, you have 2 good young players. You have 3 if you count Brees Hall, and 4 if you count both running backs, Tyler Conklin, all being utilized. Corey Davis is in there, but we don't know what the share divvying up is going to be with that offense. Versus you have the running backs are somewhat involved there in LA, but Allen Robinson is clearly the number 2 receiver. Skoranek is being utilized kind of all over the field. He gets his targets as well. Higbee's going to be involved, but I think you have more pure upside with A-Rob, and I think there's similar, if not a higher floor. So I'll take Allen Robinson.
Yeah, same. Copy paste my argument from from Garrett Wilson and apply it to Corey Davis. I'm not going to be trusting him. When Allen Robinson's there with Stafford, and he's got a tough matchup, but I'll believe in that before I believe in Corey Davis with Zach Wilson.
It brings us over to our last receiver matchup. We've got PPR Curtis Samuel at Dallas, Brandon Ayuk versus the Rams, and Elijah Moore. Maybe you copy and paste that argument over again here at Pittsburgh.
Yep. So we're just going to remove him right away. And then the other one is, I think, pretty easy. I'd go with Curtis Samuel. He's getting plenty of work in different ways. Not the hardest matchup against Dallas. Not easy, but not hard either. And I'd imagine, given what we've seen from the Washington defense, they'll be in a position where they'll need to throw the ball. Where Ayuk, I don't know what to make of the 49ers offense right now. I like Ayuk more with Jimmy G than I did Lance. If you need sky-high upside, I think Ayuk probably has more of that than Curtis Samuel, but his floor is non-existent. So I go on Curtis Samuel here.
Yeah, it's weird to say that is the case. You think about it preseason, you have the good second-year player in Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, third-year or fourth-year guy, and then you have Curtis Samuel who's not been able to stay healthy. Never really thought you've been taking that player here in this comparison, but it is, it's interesting. I think you have the floor there for sure with Curtis Samuel. He's getting the carries. He's also getting targets. And I think Washington is looking to have a bounce-back game. Now, Dallas' defense has been pretty stingy and kind of kept that team afloat here with Dak out. Obviously, Cooper Rush and the offense have done enough to win games, but it's been really that defense that's been stifling some teams. So it's definitely a little concerning, but I think divisional matchup, you should see it a little more competitive than we saw with the Eagles and the Commanders last week. So I will, I'll second that here, Curtis Samuel, but I think Ayuk's pretty close there for me as well.
Okay, moving over into the world of flex. PPR, we have Mostert at Cincinnati, Garrett Wilson at Pittsburgh, and Devin Singletary at Baltimore.
Yeah, that one's tough, and that's why, this is in that flex realm. We'll see with Chase Edmonds, Mostert, we'll see how that's divvied up, but, with the uncertainty of Tua, Thursday night game, I think he'd be the first one that I cross off here. So it would come down to Garrett Wilson and Singletary, and I think it would be an upside versus a safety. I think Garrett Wilson has the upside, and if he continues to get the targets we saw, he probably is the top scorer of the bunch here. Barring doubled multiple touchdown game for one of these running backs. But safety wise, I think you're looking at Singletary, which in what could be a pretty high scoring matchup. So he's going to be hopefully involved with the whole game. I think that's been part of the issue for him. Bills have been crushing people, and they've been bringing Zach Moss in the fourth quarter. Whereas I don't think we're expecting that here with Baltimore. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. So probably lean Singletary here, but I think there's definitely some upside for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, same. Garrett Wilson's story, same as before. I agree. He's got upside if Zach Wilson's going to target him, but I want to see before I trust him. Mostert, I don't know what's going on in Miami. 1 week it's one week it's the other. There's just no trust there. So yeah, I'll go with Singletary as well. His upside's kind of all over the place, but the usage is going to be there. So I'll lean on that.
All right, and that takes us here over to our final start sit option, and still in the flex. We have a half-point PPR. A.J. Dillon versus the Patriots. Jeff Wilson versus the Rams. And I guess it's Jamal Williams against Seattle.
Yeah, and I think he's the one I'm going with. Oddly enough, Detroit wants to run the ball. Swift is they said he's out yet. I don't think
it's official, but I think it's leaning that way.
Yeah.
It's expected that he's going to miss a couple weeks, but I don't think they've officially rolled him out just
that's what I
yet.
thought.
So definitely stay
So
tuned.
yeah, I'll go with him because I'm pretty sure Swift's going to be out. They want to run the ball, he'll get plenty of work. Seahawks defense not great. Where Jeff Wilson's getting plenty of work, but Rams defense pretty tough. That could end up being a low scoring game. Could be a high scoring game too.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just feel a little bit safer with Jamal Williams. And then AJ Dillon, splitting the backfield, has a tougher matchup against the Patriots. That's an easier one to set aside.
Yeah, I agree. And you probably just picked up Jamal Williams this week unless you were stashing him. So it feels weird to plug him in, on top of some of these guys that you were playing probably the last few weeks. But I agree. It's Jamal Williams, barring DeAndre Swift coming back and playing. Even if Swift plays for some reason, though, and is limited, still think Jamal is the 1A there. And with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, I don't think we've seen both of them produce in a game. I think it's been every other. They've been alternating back and forth as to who's the guy and who is kind of the decent output. So I don't know that I would want to mess with that. I mean, obviously a lot of upside there for that offense. That we could see that be a blowout against the Patriots and a depleted offense on the other side. Jeff Wilson, clearly the number one back, but we saw the offense sputter a little bit. Good Rams defense. So I kind of want to see it there as well. So yeah, pretty easily Jamal Williams here for me.
Okay. So, like you said, that takes care of our start sit questions. We'll move over to some trade questions here. Will Dynasty 10 teams Superflex PPR? Some big names here: DK Metcalf and Devonta Smith, or T Higgins and a 23 first.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it looks like Higgins was probably the most valuable this year, I think. Most. But I mean, I would say most powerful offense, but Eagles are playing well, and Devonta Smith's being used. We don't know where that first is going to be, right? But barring that being the 101, I think that's probably the least valuable asset of the bunch here. Like each of these players is going to command more than a single first. And until we get to the draft itself, when the 101 maybe has that value. So I'll take the Metcalf and Smith side, especially here in a dynasty league. Metcalf maybe a little iffy this year, definitely still producing, but upside, probably at a low when it comes to buying him. So imagine that it'll go up when they eventually get a better quarterback.
Yep, I agree. All the same reasons. I don't think there's anything to really say. It feels like you hit on both Metcalf and Devonta Smith. I don't think you want to exchange one of them for a first and just roll the dice again, given they're younger. So yeah, I'll stick with those two as well.
All right, another dynasty one here for us: Christian Kirk or James Robinson, both on Jacksonville, full PPR, and noted that it is a team that is rebuilding, so likely not contending this year.
Yeah, and I think that makes all the difference. Straight up, I'd probably go James Robinson based on what we've seen and the fact that he's a running back. But as a rebuilding team, I think I'd rather take Kirk. James Robinson, they've drafted another running back with ETN there. He hasn't shown up yet, but if he does, then he's going to be the one that gets all the work because J-Rob doesn't have any draft capital behind him. Where Kirk went and got paid, they went and got him, and he's been looking good and doing a lot for that offense. So I think as a rebuilding team, I'd want Kirk.
Yeah, I agree. The only caveat I'd say here is if the team has Kirk already, I would keep Kirk. If the team has Robinson, I feel like you might be able to get more the way James Robinson's playing than a Christian
Possible,
Kirk.
Yeah.
Maybe you look to try to get some draft pick value. I mean, Kirk's solid, good young receiver, right? So not a bad trade. But I feel like the way he's playing, and obviously there's risk that we have Travis Etienne come in and take some of the work away and take some of the value away. So maybe this is a good time to be trading him. But yeah, I think I like the trade. I like Christian Kirk's side. But yeah, if you have James Robinson, I wouldn't mind looking into maybe getting some more draft capital as a rebuilding team.
Yeah, so speaking of ETN there, last dynasty question, PPR, ETN or Brandon Ayuk, straight up?
Yeah, and I think this is probably the flip side of that, right? ETN's value's down, but I think I would absolutely want the ETN side here. If I'm The ETN side, I'm definitely trading for more than Ayuk or holding until his value goes up if you really want to get rid of him. If I'm the Ayuk side, I'm definitely jumping on that, especially maybe after Ayuk's looked good for a game or two so far this year. I think ETN is way more built-in value as we move along.
Yeah, agreed. Barring a situational change for Ayuk, and that situation not being Trey Lance come in and, actually be good, but, Debo leaving or Ayuk going to a different team, I think what we've seen is probably a ceiling. So ETN, his ceiling is sky high. They want to get him involved in the pass catching game. So he could be, elite running back in this league. So yeah, I would definitely rather take the shot there than sit with an Ayuk.
All right, so it brings us over to our redraft trades. We have first a 10-team PPR, Lamar Jackson and Rashad Penny, or Devontae Adams, Hollywood Brown, and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, so this one is an interesting one, given how Lamar Jackson and Russ are playing. But I think I'm taking the Adams side. You're getting a top guy in Adams, you're getting a real good guy in Hollywood, and then Russell Wilson. I believe he'll turn it around eventually. I don't know if it's gonna be this week or next week, but I'd like to believe he's going to turn it around. And then Lamar Jackson could stay on fire, and then Penny. I don't know what you do with Penny. There's gonna be some weeks you're gonna be happy starting him, and some weeks you aren't. So it very well could really just end up being Lamar as the only legitimate starter you can trust, and then Adams, Hollywood, and Ross. So I'll stick with the side that gets all the pieces there. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, Adams is easily the most important part of this trade, and I think we are not ones to really go out and trade for quarterbacks just because of how easily they can be streamed. You're getting Russ back, so buying Russ low, still being able to stream someone else probably. Adams and Hollywood is just it's too much value to get back. So if I'm the Lamar side, I'm definitely making the trade, but I would not be looking to make this move if I'm the Adams and Hollywood side.
Perfect. And the last question here, Will, 12-team PPR, A.J. Brown or A.J. Dillon and Juju?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think through the first few weeks, we've seen A.J. Brown be pretty highly utilized. So I think it's probably close to a fair trade. I like the A.J. Brown side. I think it's just, the 2-for-1. Usually you're happy getting the one because, you're able to go pick somebody up. So the trade really kind of looks like a 2-for-2 since you open up that roster spot. AJ Dillon, Juju's solid, especially getting the running back in Dillon. You have a chance that he becomes lead option if Aaron Jones goes down. But I like getting that top guy in AJ Brown, especially seeing how he's utilized and how the offense is playing right now.
Same. Like you said, if AJ or if Aaron Jones went down, this is more comparable to me because you're going to have a running back one against a assumed wide receiver one, maybe high end two by the end of it, plus a Juju. So that would be more comparable. But as things stand now, yeah, I definitely want the more elite side of AJ Brown than a running back two and a dart throw at the wide receiver position.
And bonus for you here: any of the recent dynasty trades that went down here? It looks like just the last few days. Of note to you, it looks like a few of them maybe a little lopsided, but in general, any of them stand out to you? Even the more ones that just went down today.
So yes, we had Amon-Ra get traded for a second and a fourth. That is beyond stupid.
So it was Amon-Ra and a second.
Oh, and a second.
For Ayuk.
Oh, what am I? Okay. Yes, I misread.
I think out of the trades, that one was probably one of the most
fair. That is looking at everything.
Still is, yeah. I mean, you can kind of throw the fourth away, right?
Yeah. So
dropping down from a first to a second.
Yeah.
To get and then you're basically trading Ayuk and Samuel for Amon-Ra.
Yeah. So that is that's solid. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mostly because of the first, because I know the team giving up Amon-Ra's in a rebuild. I'd rather have Amon-Ra in a rebuild than probably Ayuk and Curtis Samuel, but the first helps that out.
Yeah, and the team that's getting Amon-Ra kind of retooling, but we'll see how good that team is. So the rebuilding team could luck into us, another early first round pick, which is helpful.
Yeah, and then we had Crowder and Lockett for Mac Jones, Allen Robinson, and a second. I don't.
Yeah, 24 seconds. A
little bit
away,
further
but still a
away.
second.
I guess I'm on that side with the second. Like Crowder, I really don't care about. Mac Jones, I don't care about. So it's like it becomes Lockett for Allen Robinson in the second. I'm fine. I'd probably take down Robinson's side.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I take the Allen Robinson side as well. I mean, Crowder doesn't do much for me. I feel like Robinson and Lockett are fairly close. I mean, you could argue Lockett's a little bit ahead of him, but you're basically getting Mac Jones in a second for free in that case, or those two to take that maybe slight downgrade from Lockett to Robinson.
Yeah, that's fair. Next one here, we had Akers, a Renfro, and a first for Josh Jacobs and Mike Evans. That's probably fair. I think I said that was fair when I first saw it. Now I'm kind of looking at it, questioning it a little bit.
It's interesting because we actually traded Mike Evans and Josh Jacobs to this team, who then in a subsequent trade changed the same two.
Yeah, I felt like that was fair when I first looked at it. I don't know anymore. Like Josh Jacobs to Cam Akers, given Akers is looking better every week, seems more like a win for the Akers side. Evans to Renfro is clearly going to be Evans. But thinking long term, you don't know what his quarterback situation is going to be next year. And I'm not sure if first, I feel like a first is, maybe it makes it fair between the two, Hunter and a first for Mike Evans. But then, I said I like Cam over Jacobs. So yeah, I guess I'm on the Cam side.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think the first puts it over. It's close, and I think you need the first, right? Because Cam and Jacobs is probably pretty close, and Evans is a good step above Renfro. So that first is what I think evens it out. But yeah, I like that side, especially for a team that I think is retooling. That team has some younger players there, so really continuing to acquire some younger players and first round picks.
Yeah, then the other one that happened within the
Big
week.
One.
Yeah, that was Zeke Gesicki, a first and a second being in 2024 for CMC, Mo Alley Cox, and 2 fourths, one of which being in 2024. So don't really care about the fourths.
Yeah, and Mo Alley Cox is, I guess you can say it's a slight downgrade, but I think Gesicki's pretty high ahead of him. So I think it's really Zeke Gesicki in the picks for McCaffrey, which it's a decent haul for CMC, but I feel like, we'd seen him going for much more than that.
Yeah, Zeke just hasn't shown enough to warrant that spot. Like you swap out Zeke for a young running back, or even younger, like Montgomery, I'd probably be happy with, Aker, whatever. Zeke being older, declining year over year doesn't really do it for me. So yeah, I'll stick with the CMC side there.
Awesome. Well, a couple bonus ones there for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's those bonus trades. That's going to wrap us up. So good luck in week 4, everyone. Tune in next week for another waiver show and another start sit show. And until then, trust your board.